We covered quite a bit last time. It's good exercise, good to walk through, good to see all that you have done, are doing, have thought about doing maybe even on some of those. And so just want to start off real quick with any further discussion related to this. Any questions, any further comments or discussion on this? And if you weren't here, this is just basically one of the things I said early on is that most churches are trying to do too much. You're better off to do a few things with a lot of effectiveness than lots of things with mediocre impact. And so every church I've worked with has said we don't have enough volunteers. And I've asked every church, is it possible you're trying to fill too many volunteer slots? And every church says, no, we're not. I don't think so at all. And so a fun exercise to do, fun is the right word, but an interesting exercise to do is to just list and say, okay, show us everything that happens at your church with some kind of regular, some of it's once a week, some of it's once a month, some of it's once a quarter. But the reality is, all of these have to have slots that are filled, all of these need leadership, all of these need resources, time, money, and people. And your church has a limited amount of resources, same as mine does, same as every other church and organization does. So you're trying to take your limited resources of time, money, and people and disperse it over all of these areas effectively. And I think we made the argument that that may not be the most effective way to utilize the resources that God has given you. Okay? So, any further questions, comments, thoughts on this before we move on to the next stage tonight?
It was eye-opening to think how many things we do for our people here, but not out or beyond. So that was a good visual.
And I did give you the encouragement that most churches it's even more imbalanced, infinitely more imbalanced. So, yeah. Anything else? Would you have ever guessed you would have, like before we saw the visual, would you ever guess this is what it looks like to be a member here?
Nope.
Okay? That is what it looks like to be a participating member here. Now, the reason we don't know that is because you only choose to participate in things that you are interested in or sometimes not interested in, sometimes the thing you feel guilty to say no to. But the reality is, somebody's got to provide leadership for all these things. And pastors expect to have some kind of oversight over all of these. And the harshest reality is all of these things are competing for your resources that you have to make disciples. Okay? So, here's what we're going to do tonight. We want to take all of this activity and transition it into some intentionality. Alright? Now, just for clarity of terms, we said we can go with the terms that Liberty Heights uses, even though you don't have to land on those. So all of your gathering environments would be worship environments, fellowship environments, and prayer environments. Okay? All of your growing environments would be anything you're doing for intake, Bible study, small groups, Sunday school, anything like that. Also, growing environments in our arrangement is anything that's a serving opportunity. So here's what we say at our church. Growing is not limited to intake. Okay? Intake alone produces knowledge, but not growth. That growth happens when there's intake and outflow, that I'm getting my head full and my hands dirty, that equals a transformed heart. Okay? So growing and serving would be in those areas. There's a couple other things for us. It's biblical counseling, leadership development. And then going, for us, is broken up into three areas, or two areas. Neighbors and nations. So this is anything within a 30-minute radius of our church. You may define a 20-minute radius of your church. The larger a church is, the larger the radius that it draws from. Okay? So most churches in America are neighborhood churches. They're kind of drawing from the neighborhoods around them, or at least they should be. When a church gets a little larger, it's what's known as a regional church. So people are driving from 30 minutes plus to drive there for, they like, whatever, fill in the blank, some program or pastor, worship leader, whatever. When a church becomes a mega church, there are times people drive 45 to 60 minutes because that church is offering things at a level that some other church can't. And often people are driving past numerous churches in their own neighborhood to get there. Okay? So we do 30 minutes on our neighbors. The stats that I have seen is that if someone lives beyond 30 minutes, beyond your church, it's highly unlikely they're going to be a highly involved member. Okay? That's an hour round trip. If someone's going to do that, they're going to come once or twice a week, or whatever the case is. So you may draw your circle in a 20-minute radius, something like that. But just to give you an idea. So nations is not just So I showed this to coach at church one time. It was nations, and so that's like anything outside of our 30-minute. And the guy said, "So what's the nation of Detroit?" And I said, "Shut up, smart aleck." No one likes you, right? But this is anywhere that's outside of our 30-minute radius that requires a short-term trip possibly or something like that to get there. And so that's how ours is organized. Okay? So that's just for clarification. Here's why. What we want to do to become an intentional church and not just an active church is you want to take all of this activity and transition it into intentionality. Okay? So I'm going to pass something around. This is what we use for our intentional strategy at our church. I'm not saying yours has to look exactly like this. It may look real similar. It may look a lot similar when we're done. I've had churches adopt it verbatim and just go, "Hey, we're going to use these terms," and whatever. This is not original with me, so you got one. All right. So we can't do everything, okay, at our church. And you can't do everything at your church, but the good news is this: you don't have to do everything. You have to do the things that A, God has resourced you to do, and B, what your neighborhood requires you to do if you're going to make disciples in your neighborhood. All right? So this is what it looks like for us. There are 5 different categories, teams, divisions. I know division's a bad word, because we'll talk about church. Departments, whatever you like to think of, that our church is organized around. Okay? And each one of these has a team leader. Now, for us, at our size, a team leader over each one of these is a staff person. Now, that was not true when I got there. It was partly staff and partly non-staff. So this is what it looks like for us. So you can see, under administration, when I talk about church administration, you're covering everything related to facilities, finances, personnel. We have a weekday preschool, so you guys have a weekday preschool, anything like that? Okay. I would encourage you to not start one if you don't have one. Used to. It takes a lot of oversight. I'm just going to say that. IT, anything we do with IT, computers, all that kind of stuff, and then security. Anything we do for security at our church. So let me tell you what normally, and I'll just kind of pause and go through each one of these a little bit, and then I'll let you ask some questions. We'll talk about what does it look like to take your activity and turn it into intentional strategy. That's what this is for us. Okay. So for under administration, let me tell you the normative structure in most Southern Baptist churches. Okay, there is a personnel committee, there is a finance committee, and there are trustees. Okay, here's been my experience in leading churches directly as a pastor, and then in coaching other churches. It is not uncommon for someone in a personnel committee meeting to say, "Hey, Brad's on staff. I think he's done a good job this year. I think we should give an increase. How much of an increase do I think we should give? We should give him 2%. I think we should give him 5%. Someone, the voice of reason, says, "Whoa, that's not our conversation to have. That's a finance committee conversation." Yep. So table that, put it in a finance committee meeting. Finance committee, what do you think? Well, how good they do? Like, what kind of benchmarks and measurables do they have? This? Well, no, that's not our job to decide that. That's the personnel committee's job. Go back to the personnel committee. Okay? Incredibly common. Matter of fact, normative, I would say. Or it goes like this. Hey, we're gonna. I think at one point in time you guys had a quote to do your roof. It's like a 6-figure quote. Okay, okay. So we're gonna do the roof, and it's gonna be $100,000. And so trustees are meeting. We need this. We got bids. We got all this kind of stuff. Well, let's just go ahead and approve this. And does it need to be this or this? That's not our decision to make. That's the finance committee decision to make. Okay. Go back to finance committee. Well, what about if you supplemented and didn't do a standing metal roof? What if you did part rubberized roof and part? That's not our decision to make. That's your trustee decision to make. Go back to the trustees. And here's what happens. The finance committee does all the research as it relates to finances and knows it inside and out. Then they call the trustee and say, "Will you come in and sign something?" And you've not been a part of the conversation at all. Why? Because you're a legal representative of the church. So sign off on something that you've not been a part of any discussion about, but we need you to sign because you're a trustee. So here's my argument. All of those are overlapping administrative functions of any organization, and the church is not exempt from any of that. Okay? The church is not a business, but there is a business side of the church. Yes. When you're dealing with people and properties and insurance and salaries and taxes, there is a business side of a church. Even though that's not our business, there is a business side that we have to tend to so that we have the ability to do the ministry side. All right? So every church that I've coached, every church that I've led, we have combined all of that into one team called administrative team. One team handles all of those conversations. There's not a personnel team at my church or committee. There's not a finance committee. There are not trustees at my church. Okay? That way the people that sign off on it are the people who discussed it from beginning to end and are the most well-informed people to actually sign off on it. Now, someone would say, well, you have to have trustees legally to sign off your church. You don't. Okay? What you have to have legally is whatever your bylaws designate are the legal representatives of your church, and those people are voted into that position, and that's recorded in the minutes of a business meeting. That's all you have to have for a team to be legal representatives of the church. Okay? So in our bylaws, which I'll bring a copy of next week as something to consider, it says the administrative team shall function in oversight over facilities, finances, personnel, all those issues. And then they also serve as legal representatives of the church. One team, I can't remember if there's 5 or 7 people on it. I think there's 7. I don't go to meetings. Our administrative pastor runs the team. So 7 people on the team. So how does it work? I can't tell you how well it works. We've got about total receipts, budget-wise, around $2 million. We've got 90 acres of property. We've got 100,000 square feet of building space. We've got 15 or 16 people on staff. That team, boom, boom, all that stuff. They handle all of it. They meet once a quarter. They meet for like 2 or 3 hours when they meet. We buy them lunch. They meet. It is smooth. They own it all. They don't have to say, well, go. No, that's a personnel. No, that's fine. It's the whole team. They own the decision from beginning to end. They approve. Now, this may be a little stretch for some of you. They approve all out-of-budget expenditures. So once the budget is approved by the church, the staff member has freedom to spend money within his budget. Okay? Let me just give you a little glimpse into some financial philosophy. When your church has a budget, it's viewed in one of 2 ways as far as how your culture goes. The budget is either viewed as a control or it's viewed as a guide. Okay? If it's viewed as a control, and let's say I'm leading the youth ministry here and you gave me a budget of $10,000. This is the joke we have at our church. So if your budget was $10,000 and it's the end of August and you've spent $9,800 so far, our advice is you better schedule a bake sale because you're not going over budget. The reason you're not going over budget is because the budget's controlled, not a guide. And the budget was set based on the request you turned into us that we approved. So it's not like we're like, no, we're being stingy. You put a plan, you didn't manage your plan, that's not my fault.
Right.
Okay, now let me tell you why we do that. One, because in most churches, if the giving goes over budget, like, hey, our budget was $200,000, we brought in $250,000. The average church member thinks, we got $50,000 in the bank. What really happens is, we spend that money on, not on bad stuff, on ministry and mission, and then when a large capital expense comes up, we have to have a capital campaign or take a building offering. We don't. Every dollar that we go over budget, now, I'll finish this and come back. Every dollar we go over budget, we shift into a reserve account, and then when we've done capital improvements, we pay cash for all of it. Okay, so I inherited, when I got to Liberty Heights, the most indebted church in Ohio per capita. That's an absolute, that's a statistical fact. Okay, since we've been there, we've even though the church was getting ready to get foreclosed on, we've executed over $500,000 in capital projects improvements. I know it seems like a lot, but when you got a building that big, it's really not that much. We've paid cash for all of it. Where did that money come from? Just taking special offerings? Early when I got there, we did do a capital campaign, mostly to pay off debt, because there was so much debt. We did a couple of improvements. But ever since then, when the giving's gone over budget, we set that money in a savings account, and when a big capital need comes up, we pay cash for it without going back to our church and taking up an offering. Okay? Let me tell you the other thing we do, and I know this is getting our financial a little bit. We never budget for growth in our budget. So this year's budget is based on last year's receipts. Now the giving has grown the last 7 years. The giving has grown by over $600,000. We still don't budget for growth. Because as long as the budget grows just a little bit, guess what that is? Margin. Okay? When we teach personal finance, Dave Ramsey teaches personal finance, when Crown Financial teaches personal finance, one of the most important things they teach is this, is to build margin into your budget. Okay? So we're teaching people that as we're discipling them as it relates to money and finances. And then the church does the exact opposite. We're going to spend every dime we get, even if it goes over budget. Okay? So, how does that team function? Once we approve the budget, if something comes up mid-year and we say, hey, we didn't realize this, we're planning the budget, this opportunity, this capital need, whatever the case is, we've grown in this area, we need to hire an administrative assistant, whatever. The admin team gets together, because they're the ones who look at all the numbers, they know all the everything, and they say we approve it or we disapprove it. Okay? We do not vote on it as a church. Now, are there things that we vote on as a church? Yes. To change the overall total budget? Yes. To change the bylaws? Yes. To sell land? Yes. For indebtedness, to take on indebtedness? Yes. The calling of a senior pastor? Yes. So we do vote on things congregationally as a church. Okay? But here's what we feel like. The people who know the most about the finances should be the ones probably making the decisions. Now, I had someone say one time, well, I give money, I should have a say-so. Okay? Let me just give you some feedback on that. You may like it, you may not. A person with that mentality, they're not giving anything. They're trading. I'll give you money in exchange for control. Okay? So this is not a company where you're buying stock and shares. All right? So if there's an expectation, now I'm not talking about no accountability. We have performance reviews on staff. There's a lot of accountability built in. That admin team, they do my job review. I do everybody else's. But if the idea is, well, I gave, so I want to say so. We don't. Matter of fact, I had a lady. I've had a policy since I was young in ministry, and so the lady that was very much a mentality. She let me know. So I just told the treasurer, I said, total of everything she's given, and just write a check back and just give it to her. So it was $200 that year. Now, for some people, $200 is a tremendous sacrifice. For her, it was not. Okay? So when I say, is there accountability, like you don't vote on as a church? Yeah, there's accountability. But the people, so in a normal church context, so let's say you want to buy a bus, the shuttle bus you have out there, whatever. And you've got someone who shows up once a quarter. They have equal say in how God's money is going to be spent as the people who are overseeing it on a weekly basis. Okay? So do I make all the decisions financially? No. I don't have the ability legally to even sign a check at our church. Like the running joke at our church, when it comes time for all the budget requests, I always put in like, I need some pencils, shut up. Because just to be honest with you, the bigger the church gets, when you're the pastor, you don't spend any money, the staff spends all the money. Like I don't have a direct line item in the budget that I can draw from. So I spend some of their money, like, I have my budget. I'm like, I bought something on this. But honestly, when I buy like some commentaries, and I don't lead in ministry directly, so I don't have a budget connected to anything I'm doing. So I can't even sign a check. So that's part of simplifying. So here's what we say at our church: less meetings, more ministry. Less meetings, more mission. All right? Let me pause right there because I know that's different probably than what you've ever done and how you've ever been structured. I think you had a question, so I'll take your question.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
So thoughts, comments, concerns, questions on that? Because that's taking several of these things that are up here and scrunching them down and scrunching the number of meetings down.
Less
Okay.
meetings, more.
Ministry. And less meetings, more mission. Get a joke about committees. I'll tell you the joke, right? It's a lame joke.
Tell it. I love lame jokes.
Committees take minutes and waste hours. It's a lame joke. So that's a terrible joke. My daughter would be like, that's embarrassing. I can't believe it. So, yes, ma'am.
How do you handle designated funds?
That's a great question. We don't allow designated giving.
Okay.
Unless it's a pre-approved designated account. So for example, we already have a pre-approved missions account. You can give to missions directly. Every now and then we'll open up, hey, students went to camp, our people love to support. So I made a challenge to our students. I said, hey, if you bring an unchurched kid to student camp, I'll raise the money to help pay for it. Okay? So people were able to give specifically that. But for someone, okay, so let's say I'm going to give $100 that week, whatever. So I'm gonna write a check for $100, and I've got a giving envelope, and on there it says missions, building, or missions, building fund, general budget, other. And so I'm gonna give 25, 25, 25, 25. Some people do that, that's how they designate giving. I had a lady at my first church that she would give all of her giving to the children's ministry. Because A, she had a granddaughter in children's ministry, B, she didn't like me, so. Not hard to imagine. That was a lady who I said, give all your money back, by the way, so. Let me give you a real example from my church. Not a malicious thing, a good-hearted thing, but so we had a gentleman, he's with the Lord now, and this has been 5 or 6 years ago, passed away. He went around and was trying to raise money for a flagpole outside. It's not a terrible thing, but at the time we had a roof that leaked so bad we had to put buckets in the worship center when I first got there. So I said, hey, I appreciate it. You're a veteran. Thank you for your service. It's just not the top priority right now. If I had $13,000 extra, there's 15 different ways I need it right now. And what happens is when people give that way, it hurts the church because when someone gives a designated gift, legally what that is called from the IRS perspective is a donor restricted asset. In other words, if someone gave it to missions and you spent it on non-missions, that was illegal. You can't do that. You'd be surprised how many churches don't know that and do that. And out of ignorance, they just don't know, you know. And so sometimes I go to church, and I remember working with one church. They're like, we're broke, we don't have any money. And I said, okay. So we got the financial coaching part of the session. And I said, one of the things if you'll show me all your chart accounts, if you'll just let me understand the picture, and then I can kind of coach from there because I'm just ignorant on where it's at. They had an enormous amount of money designated in like 25 different pocket accounts.
That's crazy.
But it's
And
common.
The church was
Yep.
bankrupt.
Yep.
You kidding me? That's
No,
insane.
it's
Oh my
common.
goodness.
Because some people are like, I'm going to give it, but I want to have a say so where it lands. How about you just give it and we make disciples with it? How about we say lanes and make disciples? So we don't allow designated giving unless it's a pre-approved account. We have had to give gifts back before where someone said, hey, I want to give X, Y, Z. We just said, hey, thank you for your generosity. Right now, these are our only 2 designated accounts, missions and debt relief. And if you'd like for us to divert it to one of those, that's great. If you're uncomfortable with that, we understand and we'll mail it back to you. We would never spend your money without telling you something like this. So nobody's ever offended by it. We're honest about it. And you know and we explain why. Here's why we do it that way. And they say, hey, I totally get it. You know, 9 times out of 10 they said, just put it in the general fund, just put it, you know, that kind of thing. So a couple times someone said, oh, okay, I'll just cancel that check. Not in a mean, ugly way kind of thing, but so.
You know, when I was treasurer of a former church, they had $10 here, $20
Yep.
here, 30,
Yep.
100 here,
Yep.
and it was designated and we couldn't spend it for anything else.
So that's exactly, remember I said that's normative, like all those accounts, like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. This church had 25 or 30 designated accounts. There was somewhere like $18 in there. I'm like, what's that $18 in there? Someone gave money for children's camp to sponsor a kid one year. I said, how long ago was that? I don't know, it's been 10 years ago. I said, are you serious?
Oh my goodness.
So I'm just telling you that story has played out in lots of churches. That's how they operate. So we don't allow designated giving unless it's pre-approved accounts, which for us is missions. So if you want to give a designated gift, missions, give it missions. That's how we do.
But what if it's in memorial for someone?
Yeah, what we've done for that, so when it's an immemorial gift, we say, hey, you can give a gift in memorial to anyone. If they want us to purchase something like,
Designate something.
well, I'm going to give, someone passed away and I want to give a $100 gift. What we tell is, hey, thank you for the gift. We have 2 options. We can either put it in the general account or we can put it in the missions account. Which one would you prefer? So we let them choose. Otherwise, it gets stuck into a fund with nothing that can ever be used for and stuff. So most of the time what they told us is this, hey, I just gave it in honor of them. And so I just want to say I'm giving this gift in honor of them. How you use it is however the church wants to use it, that's fine. But I want to give it in honor of them. We said, no problem at all, absolutely understand. So,
Like church at home, like, say, my cousin gave in honor of her father, who wanted to buy a specific thing for church. That's what they did.
yeah. We have not allowed that. Here's why. This happened at my first church, okay? So this is not a hypothetical story, it's a real story. So a lady's brother in the church passed away. So when he died, a few people who knew him gave gifts in his honor. Okay? So at the time, we were remodeling the whole foyer space. We'd had a designer come in, she picked everything out, so nobody got mad, nobody picked it, and she picked it. And this lady came in, and she said, I bought something for the foyer. It was this huge thing on the wall. And this is what I bought in memory of all the gifts from my brother, and I expect it to be hung up when we're gonna leave the church. So what happens sometimes, now if I said, oh gosh, we're not gonna do that, then I'm a jerk. If I said, hey, that's great, even though we'd already paid someone to design the whole foyer, I'm a bad leader. So it's a no-win situation. So we said, hey, that's nice, but we're gonna put it over here. And if you're not comfortable with that, I totally understand, I'll give it back to you. But we kind of designed the spaces. Did her feelings get hurt? They did. But sometimes people will hijack what they want done through that. Now, here's what we did do at that church, because that was a culture of that church, that was something common they did. Whatever they wanted to buy in memory of someone else, like it was a plaque or something like that. Like I coached a church, now I don't know if you do this, so don't get offended because I'm not picking on you because I don't know if you do this, okay? It's dangerous to say that. I coached a church not too long ago, it wasn't too far from here. And I walked in, and right in the foyer where all your guests come was, I'm not exaggerating, it was bigger than that bulletin board, a wall of all the people that had died.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Well, it's not that uncommon. And I just said, hey, that's a nice way to honor those folks. I said, I don't know if I would want that right when all my guests are coming. You're, like the first thing I come in is look at all the people who died and went here.
Well, they went here and died.
But yeah, that's right, yeah. Look at all the people you killed off. Look at that. So, these are all the casualties at Mount Healthy. So the pastor just said, he's like, I'm not, like, I'll be dead before that thing comes down. I'm not touching it. I'm not like, and I said, I understand it's a touchy thing. So here's what we did for those folks who did that, because it's out of a sincere heart. But at the same time, you can't just let anybody buy anything they want and just slap it up so what we let them do, whatever Sunday school class, because I'm just gonna be honest with you, most of the time it was senior adults that did it, and most of the senior adults were in Sunday school classes, not small groups. We let them put that up anywhere they wanted in that classroom. We just said, hey, that has meaning to you, that's important to you, we want to honor that. Would it be okay if we put it in your room? Yeah, we'd be thrilled, great. So that's how we handle it. It is a touchy thing, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but at the same time, you have to be careful about giving people free ranges to do stuff that you may not honestly want done. It just becomes this kind of thing stuff. So we let them give those kind of gifts, and usually it's small, like it's a few $100s or something like that. And we just said, hey, would you like to purchase something specific? No, doesn't matter to me. Yes, I want a specific XYZ. Great, we'll buy it, we'll put it up in your room for you. When you get there next week, it'll be there, and you guys can celebrate that and stuff. So that's how we've handled it in a way that's diplomatic, I guess. Yep.
The point person on all that comes back to the pastor?
On the administration team, or on those decisions?
Not the decision so much, but it's dealing with the individual that wants to put that new thing that they just bought up into the foyer.
Yeah. So, in your size church, usually yes. Now, if you have a policy on the front end of we only allow designated gifts for this, and if it's a memorial gift, then we'll put it up in that classroom or something like that, then he doesn't have to be the bad guy, because that's a policy. It's not him turning down people face to face. It's just saying, hey, this is how we handle designated giving. This is how we handle memorial gifts. He's not the bad guy at that point. But setting the policy and enforcing is a strong word, that we don't receive designated gifts, that's not my job, that's our administrative team's job.
Right.
So if someone's like, hey, I gave a gift and I want to give a gift to X, Y, I'll tell you another real story. So church was working with, they were updating the church a little bit, they want to take pews out, put chairs in. And pews were beat to death. Okay, they were, some person was totally against it. It wasn't church, we didn't have pews. And so they said, okay, I'll give a designated gift enough to remodel all the pews.
Oh.
They wouldn't have given a dime to this church. So we just said, like, how do you handle that? I'm like, I wouldn't accept the gift. And I said, because here's the thing, it's not a gift.
Yeah, that's
It's not a gift. That's it.
Yeah.
And so go back to your question. We don't we don't receive designated gifts unless it's to pre-designated accounts that our admin team has decided
Yeah, I do.
to do that stuff. So the whole time I've been there, we've had 2 designated accounts. Missions and then a building capital campaign we did to pay down debt. So, and that's why we don't do it. You know. It becomes an accounting nightmare when you got all these tiny pocket accounts with $20, $30. And again, there was one that was like $18 locked up for 10 years because someone gave for a youth camp 10 years ago. You know, so that's how we handle stuff. Other questions that relates to administrative stuff?
We did have a gift here at Chimes, Jim Cash died, and
Okay.
it's been very nice, you to hear around here, but what was doing that situation?
It was fully funded too. There was no church money, it was the.
It usually is.
the
Yeah,
benevolence.
it usually is. You give my honest answer?
Yes.
I don't want to give an answer that sounds like I'm not honoring this person's memory. So I'm just giving an objective answer. What I would have done is I would have said, hey, that's a wonderful gift. The church right next to my house has chimes in place, 12 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you know, the whole neighborhood loves it. I would have went and said, hey, we have $40,000 in HVAC repairs and $100,000 in roofing repairs. Would you consider maybe donating towards that instead? Because practically speaking, that might be a bigger need. And they may have said no. They may have said no. And what I've said before in the past, said, hey, we have a couple other projects that we've just been sitting on because we don't have funds for it. Would you mind? Would you consider one of these? And again, they may say no. And then you have to decide at that point, you're going to dig your heels in, you know, that kind of thing and stuff. So that's how we've handled in the past. Is it touchy? It is. Because again, sometimes it's good motive, sometimes, but again, if like at my church, if someone said, hey, I'm going to give a grand piano at $30,000 and I've got 16 buckets in the worship center because I can't fix the roof, it didn't really help a whole lot. So we've asked them in the past, most time people came to us and said, we want to give a gift in honor of XYZ. What's a project you've been sitting on? And we've all got a running list we keep of here's the most pressing projects we have. They say that. Now here's the other thing we do, and again, I don't know if you do this or not, you have to decide what you're comfortable with. And when I tell you this is what we do, please hear me, I'm not saying this is what you should do. I'm just trying to give real examples and then why we do it. You have to decide where you land on all this stuff, okay? We don't allow anything that's been given by anybody to have a name plaque on it. Let me tell you why, 2 reasons. I tell them this all the time, as long as I'm there, there'll never be a name plaque on anything. Because we don't give gifts in honor of anyone, we give gifts in honor of the Lord.
Amen.
2, if that thing ever becomes dated and you want to remodel, you will be crucified if you take it down. So rather than deal with the headache of it all, we just said, hey, you can still honor a person without having your name on it. So if you want to give a gift, let's honor the Lord, not the person. And because we just don't do it. Like I've walked in a lot of churches and building campaigns, it's like this was a big deal in the 80s. Like it's this tree with all these leaves and every leaf's got a different name on it, you know, kind of thing and stuff. And, we raised $1.5 million in our capital campaign and did a couple $100,000 remodel. Nobody's name is on anything, including mine. My name's not on the church van, it's not on the church letterhead, it's not nowhere. I'm not the church ain't about me. Okay, so those are just some, and again, you may feel differently, you may decide differently. I'm just telling you how we've done it and why we've done it that way. But again, you may land somewhere else, but at least it just gives you some ideas to think through, you know, maybe how and why. So, and again, some of those are really touchy subjects. You know, you have to handle them just very carefully in those situations.
So you really need a leader up at the front that's willing to dig in their heels.
Yes, but that's not always the pastor.
Right.
Because what happens is you've often got a guy who's always training is in theology and his heart is for people,
Right.
and you've asked him to be an administrative bulldog. So I think you should have an administrative team leader who, that's what they're doing. Okay? Most pastors aren't gifted administration.
Do they know that?
Some do.
Well, I'm serious.
No,
I mean,
some do.
so,
Like I've got a friend who's planning a church, and every time he has a question, like I've told him at this point, I'm gonna start charging you. You know, I'm probably more gifted on the administrative side than I am the ministry side, and so that's why I do all the coaching stuff, because When a church gets a certain size, like our size and even smaller than us, they usually will hire a full-time administrator. Like we have an administrative pastor, that's all he does.
Right.
You know, he has 2 or 3 people that work for him, that's all they do. When a church is smaller, they ask the pastor to wear all those hats, and he's not gifted in those areas.
I found that when the church is smaller, the pastor wants to wear the hats though.
They can sometimes.
Yeah.
They can. Now, I will say this as it relates to that. Every pastor I coach, I tell them, because I've had some pastors say, I just focus on people loving the Lord. I said, hey, that's great. When it comes time to the ministry, like the administrative side, I just let the finance committee define the budget. And I said, you're making a huge mistake as a leader. Why? Because your job is to set the vision for the church, correct? Not maybe in isolation. Yes, it is. How does the vision get carried out practically?
Right.
By how we allocate dollars. So you just gave the total vision over to a team disconnected from you even being there. You know, to his credit, he's like, I never thought about it, you're right. You know, so I think you should be involved in crafting because the administrative structure supports the vision. But as far as maintaining, enforcing, all that stuff, I think he should be removed from the mix unless that is his gifting. Now, usually that's not the gifting of a pastor who wants to go to a church under 200. Usually they're relationally driven. They're going to grow a church through pastoral care, not leadership and systems and structures.
Right.
So I didn't know that about myself when I was younger. Like, I was in a church your size and I hated it. Like, I felt like I was terrible. You know, I'd come home from meetings, I'm like, I was terrible. And, you know, the guy was pulling off the side, he's like, this isn't your deal. You know, I was another pastor, he said, these are things you're really good at. And he said, why don't you do those things? And so I left that and became an associate pastor of a mid-sized church, then I became a pastor of a larger church, and then I do a lot of coaching now, you know, use those gifts in those areas and stuff. So a lot of guys hate this part of the ministry. Like they go to seminary to learn the Bible and how to preach and love people, and they get into a church and find out, oh my goodness, I'm leading an organization, I have no idea what I'm doing.
That's right.
So,
Exactly.
but we ask them to because we're the pastor. You should know how to do all this. No. I took one class, so I've got an undergraduate degree from Bible college and a master's degree from seminary. I took one class on church administration. I still have the folder from it. I'm not exaggerating. I wouldn't do a single thing the professor told me to do. Not one. Not one. Okay? Because he basically taught us how to structure a church like his church, and it was his church was for resort retirees. It never grew beyond 100 people. And so it was so like, that's how his church was structured. It had like 30 committees. I'm like, this is insane. At the time, I'm like, oh, this is great, you know. And now you're like, this is crazy. So anyway, so other questions as it relates to administrative stuff, and you see how we can streamline all that, and there's still adequate oversight, but then it's also structured for efficiency. Now, here's the pushback a lot of churches have given me that are under 200. That's an awful lot of power in one team's hands. Okay? Do you remember what I said early on? Smaller churches are structured for control, not for growth.
So that freaks us out.
It does. It does, because you've got 7 people deciding all that stuff. Now, I've worked in a lot of churches, like we have a personnel committee. We've had one ever since we've started. How many times do they meet? Oh, they never meet. So why do you have one? Because we're supposed to have one, you know, so that kind of thing. So. Okay, other questions about that? Structure, administrative, all that stuff?
How often do you guys vote on them?
On the admin team?
Yeah.
Annually.
Okay.
They have to be approved annually. Now, they're approved for 3-year terms.
Okay.
And they all can't rotate off at the same time, you know, that kind of thing and stuff. So that way there's some continuation on the conversation, new people come on, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so
So,
then it's like a communication
Yep.
between them.
Yep.
They learn from each other.
Yep. So, and you have to stay off the team a year before you can rotate back on.
That, that works pretty smooth for you guys then,
Not a glitch, I mean, not a one.
because your people meet the qualifications, the biblical qualifications that.
I don't know if there are biblical qualifications for an admin team. I think there are for elders and deacons. But,
I was just thinking of that.
yeah, but they don't function that capacity at all. They don't have any ministry oversight whatsoever. No shepherding, nothing. It's just budgets, budget, personnel, facility, all the money, all the nuts and bolts, all that side of it. And here's what, so one church I work with, I'm like, you have a finance committee, our deacons always do all that stuff. And I said, why do you deacons do that? Well, because in Acts chapter 6, when there arose a need, they handled the offering. I said, whoa. I said, that was descriptive of what happened when that need arose in that church. That's not prescriptive for your church today to model after that. well, I think we should model New Testament. I said, okay, let's walk through some things they're doing you're not doing. He's like, oh, yeah, I guess we're not. So I said, your deacons are serving hard people. Oh, yeah. I said, are they administratively gifted people? Oh, no. Then why are you asking to do administrative things? Why don't you let them do ministry-based things?
Right.
You know, so, and again, listen, these aren't, I don't want to be critical. Most churches are only doing what they've only known to do.
Right.
It's not like they just don't, this way we've done it, we've got by somehow, even though we all feel the friction of it, like it's not as vicious as it could be, but you know, it's worked for 40 years, 50 years, whatever. So it's not, I don't mean people are ill-intentioned. Now, there are times where people are ill-intentioned, like, oh, I think the church should vote on everything. You know, one of the things, again, this is all financial stuff, so when I put together a budget, all the salaries and all that stuff is all combined in one line item. Now, it doesn't just say personnel, it says here's all the salaries combined, here's all the housing allowance combined, here's all the medical insurance combined, here's, for all the staff, it's just all combined in one thing. And some people are like, oh, I think you should spread that all out there. And I said, would you mind sharing with us what you make? Well, I don't, you know, and so.
Make it more personal.
Yeah, and so, I just think, can we just be honest? What we're afraid of is we're afraid somebody's gonna make too much money. Even though Scripture says that those who labor in word are worth double honor. Doesn't mean double pay, it just means you should take care of them, kind of thing. And so, you know, so anyway, that's financial stuff, but, other questions about, I thought someone else had a question. Yes?
I do have a question. You talked about voting on new people when they rotate off, but that's not something that was one of the things you said you voted on. So are those voted on by the other team members? How do
That's a
you
good catch,
fill
yeah,
those?
that's a good catch. So we do vote on active deacons,
Okay.
and we do vote on the administration team annually. When we approve the budget, that's all in one meeting.
Okay.
So it's not a separate, yes, that is a separate thing. And the reason why we have to vote on the admin team is because they are legal representatives of the church. And so in order for them to function as legal representatives, that has to be voted in at a called church business meeting and recorded in the minutes of the business meeting for it to be legally binding. So we do vote in that. Need a second question as well, or maybe a little bit, or no?
Oh, how do you get those?
Oh, how do you
people?
get those
Are
people?
they
Yeah.
recommended?
Yeah, so how we do deacons is, a lot of churches say, hey, church, we're gonna nominate for deacons. And then, everybody nominates the name, and then you have to go back and go, okay, these people aren't ready to be a deacon, these aren't qualified spiritually, but whatever. So it's getting this awkward thing. And so what happens now is our deacons, and this is kind of something admin team, so I'll get to that. Our deacons get together and nominate people they may know, and then they bring it to us, the pastoral staff. Because here's the reality. We know things about people that no one else knows.
Right. Which makes complete sense.
And here's the rule with our deacons. They just bring a list and say, hey, what do you think of these people? And the whole pastoral staff gets together and says, okay, like for example, someone nominates a name, and I said, hey, listen, great guy, average Joe out there. I said, but I've counseled with them for 16 weeks. I'm just telling you, they're not in a place spiritually to be a deacon right now. Okay, so the whole admin team and then what happens is we go back to the deacon, to the team leader, and I just say, okay, here's the 12 names you turned in, pastoral staff met, and I just said, who's counting, you might counsel with, everybody know, whatever. And then we say, here are the 8 people that we think we agree on, and no questions asked. Now, when I say no questions asked, not because like you don't challenge we're the pastors, because I'm not gonna divulge things I know about those people they've shared in counseling. So the agreement with the deacons is, hey, if you say no,
They're trusting you, and
that's
you're
it.
trusting them.
That's
and
it.
there's
So
a-
the deacons just say, hey, if you say no, that's all we need to know. Because there are times I know things about people that they don't need to know, to protect their family. So on the admin team, the team nominates people to serve on the team. And we don't get to say no to them. Here's why. Because that's who ultimately I'm accountable to, and the staff's accountable to me. So it's self-serving for me to put people on that team. There's not enough tension and accountability. The only thing we can say yes or no on, so on the admin team, if you're gonna be on the admin team because you're overseeing the church finances, you've got to be a generous and consistent giver. You're not getting on the admin team and not giving anything. There's a little lack of integrity there. So we take that, we say, hey, here's 5 names, whatever. We give it to the financial secretary, and we say, I don't know what people give in my church, by the way. okay? I get a list of lead givers, not the amounts, but just lead givers, so I can say thank you every year, just like I would for lead prayers, lead children's workers, I thank all of them. I don't separate out money like it's not a spiritual issue when the Bible says it is. I get a list of active members who are non-givers. Because when I go to recruit someone for ministry position, I can't let you lead if you're not investing. Now, if you're giving $1, you're not gonna be on the list, so I don't know, but zero, so it's happened times. So the finance assistant just says, hey, these folks appear to be generous and consistent givers. The rule is, are they tithing? So we talk about generosity on Continuum at our church, okay? A lot of debate about tithing is the New Testament, Old Testament, listen, I get all that. I've had that conversation a gazillion times. So we think about giving on a Continuum at our church. We talk about non-giver, occasional giver, consistent giver, tither, extravagant giver. So if you're gonna lead a small group in our church, you've gotta be a consistent giver. You may give $5 a week, but you're giving as a systematic discipline, just like prayer, just like anything else. The idea is if you're gonna be an admin team and you're overseeing the finances, you're at least tithing. Now, I don't know what people make, so, and I don't look at it, so are they tithing, so we just ask the financial secretary, does it appear they're a generous and consistent giver? And she may go, oh yeah, absolutely. Or she may go, yeah, you know. And I don't ask to see the amount, I just say, that's it. Actually, I don't ask, our admin does. So that's how it gets approved, that's why I don't nominate those people, there needs to be tension. In every organization, church included, there need to be people who do not get a paycheck from you, who are allowed to say no to you.
It's important, just for integrity and for.
Yeah. If the only people on my team that are in a position to say no to me are people who get a paycheck from me, they're not saying no a whole lot. So that's all. That's just free stuff. So other questions about administrative function? And do you understand how it would streamline a lot of what you're doing? Now, let me tell you something else on administrative function. So our admin team, they're the ones that put the budget together. Now, at this point, here's what our admin team leader is incredibly gifted. What's the big Catholic health organization? Catholic.
Health Partners.
Yes, he's the chief financial officer over all of that. Okay, so he knows, he's forgotten more about finances than I've ever learned, okay? Here's what he says to us. He says, why don't you put the budget together and bring it to us and let us pick it apart as opposed to starting from scratch? Because you know more about church finances than I do. He said, that'd be like you going to Catholic, what's it called?
Health Partners.
And submitting a budget request. He's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And he said, you guys have been good stewards, you're frugal, you don't let the budget, we've got lots of cash on hand. And he said, you just put it together and then sit down in a meeting and say, okay, talk us through why you think this is the right budget. Let's talk, they can ask any question they want. When we put the budget out for approval, we put it out 2 weeks before it actually gets voted on. And people can ask any question they want. Now, when we go to vote on it, there's no questions. Okay? Here's why. If someone had 2 weeks, and we put the admin team people's email and phone number on there, call them, ask them any question you want. You can call and say, how much does Brad make? If you're an active member, that's fine, you can know that. But if you've had 2 weeks to not ask questions, and you wait till you get in business meeting in front of everyone to ask a question, I'm questioning your motive. Okay? So some of this stuff we've just structured away from drama, for lack of a better term.
Save us from the drama.
That's it. Save it for your mama. So that's how we do it. And listen, that's why we do it. I don't want you to understand here's what we do. I want you to understand here's why we do it and why I've coached churches. Now some churches I've coached them all through all this stuff. At the end they're just like, I don't think we're gonna do that. Listen, that's fine. I'm not here to implement. I'm here to coach. Some of them, it's not a step for them. It's a leap in their mind. And so it's going to cause a lot of friction, and so let me give you a real example, okay? So it's not uncommon, and again, I don't know what you do, so don't be thin-skinned if you do this. It's not uncommon for smaller Southern Baptist churches to have a monthly business meeting. Okay, you guys have monthly?
I don't go to them unless it's something super important.
Okay. So in theory, they're every other month? Okay. So some church said, what do you guys do for a business meeting? I said, well, when I got there, it was quarterly. It's getting ready to transition either annually or twice a year, biannually. And I said, what do you guys do? Oh, that's a great idea. So, someone said, well, what if something comes up and you vote on it? I said, we call a business meeting. you know, and they were doing monthly business meetings. And they said, I think we should go to that. I said, you know what? Going from one every single month to one a year, that's not a step, that's a leap. And people are gonna lose their marbles. So the next step for you is to go to quarterly business meeting. And they're like, okay, that's a compromise, that's progress, you know. And, you know, like when they said, hey, your admin team makes the out-of-budget decisions, up to what amount? I said, any dollar amount. For them, that was like, whoa, whoa, you know. So our admin team just signed off on, I'm gonna give you real numbers, an expenditure of $255,000. Capital improvements we've been building up this fund for, like, to redo the parking lot in church, our side is $67,000 to redo the park. It's just, when they built the building, they had no concept of what it took to maintain it. So, some churches, that approval they approved in that meeting, that's bigger than some churches' whole budget. So for that church, I said, hey, how do you handle our budget expenditures? We vote on them. I said, so if a guy would spend $20 that went in the budget, it's for something, we vote on it. I said, how about you set a threshold and say, hey, if it's up to $5,000, the admin team votes on it. If it's beyond $5,000, we have to bring it to the church. Oh, okay. So that's why they haven't done it sometimes. It's been too big of a leap for them to go from where they were to where they, and so they just try to, yeah, just got to, I always tell churches, we're going to create an ideal scenario of what it could look like, but you've got to take steps to get there. Here's the interesting fact on leading change in church. A lot of people think the larger the church, the harder it is, the slower it is to make changes, because the adage is, the bigger the ship, the slower it is to turn around. I'm just telling you, the complete opposite is true.
Amen.
The complete opposite is true. We can make changes real quick, because in a larger church, they expect the staff to make leadership decisions. That's why they're hiring you. And so we make decisions that in a smaller church, it takes a lot of, like, you know, in our church, if 5 people get mad from their decision, okay, I'm not happy that anybody's mad, but at the same time, I can't let 5 people derail 900 people. You know, in the church smaller than you, I have to work with a church 2 years ago, 70 people. If 5 people get mad, you better slow down a little bit.
It's a big thing,
Yeah, so other questions relates to administration, finances, combining all that? Any concerns, or again,
I have a question.
yes?
If the pastor is not administratively gifted, then who would do the hiring and making the selection for the administrative person?
Yep, so we use our administrative team. So let me give you an example of how it works at our church. So at our church, outside of me, the church doesn't vote on hiring any staff, okay? So I get to hire the staff, and let me tell you a couple reasons why. One, I have spent more time with that person than anybody in the room times 50. So I just hired 2 guys in the last 3 months, okay? I had talked to one of them for 7 months before I hired him. What happens is, in a church business meeting, they get in, here's the candidate, I've heard about him for 5 minutes, we're gonna vote yes or no.
Yes. That's exactly how it is.
Okay? Now, the other thing is, the church doesn't vote on hiring that person, is because if I ever had to fire a person, what they would say is, well, you can't fire me, the church has to vote me out because the church voted me in. I'm not going to get in that situation. Okay? Now, having said that, the church does have to approve the position in the budget. So I can't just go, hey, I'm going to hire a worship pastor. You have a money budget for that. I'm just going to hire him anyway. No, when the church said, hey, we want to hire a worship pastor, and it's in the budget, the church can vote it down, they can approve it or whatever. So the church approves the position. I, in partnership with the administrative team, hire the person. So our administrative team, they say, okay, you got 43 resumes. The last guy we hired, we had 43 resumes throughout this process. Why don't you go through and whittle it down to what you think, you know what you're looking for, they're going to work for you. Why don't you whittle it down to a handful, and then why don't you let us take it, and we'll do all the reference checks for all of them. Great. That's exactly how it works.
You have a committee that works?
No, we have a team.
Oh, yeah.
So what happened is, when I announced that we hired a person, I just said, hey, I'm happy to introduce, his name's Nick, Many of you know we've been searching for a student pastor, and so I'm happy that in a couple weeks, we think we have a candidate we're going to announce. And when I say we, it really is we. It's myself and the administrative team. And so when I introduce them, I say, hey, listen, both myself and the administrative team are excited to welcome Nick Clayson to our team. And so would you just celebrate that, church? So, so the church approves the position. I hire the person. I get to pick who I want to hire. Because listen, they're working for me. And so if I don't, how do you manage, like, what other organization out there does someone hire that's not the person they're working for?
Right.
United States Congress.
Well, that's, yeah, well, we don't want to model that, right? They're Democrat or Republican, we don't
Yes,
model
Brad,
that.
I totally agree. That's why I was asking, because you pointed out that some pastors are not strong in that area.
Yep.
If they're not strong in that area, how would they know? But
Yep.
if that administrative team is involved, it makes a great difference. Okay.
So they may just say, hey, I said, hey, we didn't hire a children's person, here's why the children's ministry's grown, and our team leader's overwhelmed, so let's hire a kind of person. And they just say, well, what are you looking for, what are you? And so, but as far as, let me give you a little staff coaching, like a little about hiring staff. So when we hire staff, and again, this is outside of what we're talking about, but it's helpful, I think. When we hire staff, they have to pass the 4C test. I don't let them on my team. Okay? Character, because I can't manage a spiritual problem. Character, competency. The church distributes benevolence funds, but the church is not a benevolent organization. If you can't do the job, you can't work here. Okay? So character, competency, conviction, and conviction is big C and little c. So little c is philosophy of ministry. In other words, I'm going to hire you to be on the discipleship pastor, and we're diehard off-campus small groups, and you're a diehard Sunday school person. It's not going to work. Not that I'm wrong, you're right, just different philosophy of ministry. So that's the little c. The big C is theology. You're a hardcore Calvinist, I'm a hardcore Arminian, whatever. You don't believe the Bible's totally inspired, I do. Fill in the blank, whatever. You don't believe in a literal resurrection, I do, whatever. So the fourth C, which I will tell you this is the most often violated in church staffs, is chemistry. I have a very important rule that sounds overly simplistic that has served me well. So in 15 years, I've never had anybody leave my staff from one staff in another church in 15 years ever. Okay? Here's the fourth C, is chemistry. Here's the simple rule. I have to like you.
I don't like you, probably won't work.
Again, if I can't be in the room with you very long, how am I going to sit and work with you on my team? Like, it's just not going to work.
Like, I gotta be able to hear God.
That's it. That's it. So for us, that's how we hire staff. And that's the four and that's not original with me. We added to it a little bit, but I heard that years ago from someone else.
I like it.
So, yes.
Is your admin team also a senior pastor search team? Or do you elect someone for a senior pastor?
So what happens currently is we don't, hey church, we're gonna vote so-and-so. Most of that ends up being a popularity contest. And I think spiritually mature people should make spiritual decisions for the church. So the way it's now is the admin team in partnership with the deacon leadership team. So deacon leadership team is 3 people. It's the team leader, vice team leader, and the secretary. Those 2 people come together and they put in place a search team. Now, if we had elders in our church, which we are considering transitioning towards, it would be the elders and the admin team.
That's what, my question was gonna be, why the deacons? 'Cause
Yeah.
I would look at that as an elder
It
thing
is.
right there.
It is.
Okay,
So we're
just
kinda-
where
we're-
you're at, because you're in the process too.
Yep, we're kind of coaching through. So,
Yeah.
yep,
Okay,
yep.
cool.
So, okay. These are good questions. Other questions? Is this stuff helpful?
Yeah.
Interesting. My wife, whenever I come home from any coaching, she's like, what did you guys talk about? I was like, oh my gosh, and people listened? Like all this stuff to her is like, that's terrible, Have any interest on this side of the church at all? She's like, I just want to work in the children's ministry. I don't care about all those things. So, all right. So I got through our admin team. So for us, family ministries. That's everything from birth to college. I think each ministry should have its own name and logo. It should have its own brand. So Liberty Town is what we call our preschoolers. Kids City is what we call our children's ministry. Bridge 56 are 5th and 6th graders. They all have their own brand, they all have their own logo, they all have their own space that looks like that age group. Okay? Student movement is 7th grade through 12th grade. Now, some churches do 6th grade through 12th grade. We always coach churches say whatever the school district you draw from the most, you should mirror that. So for Lakota School District, where most of our kids go, not all, most of them go, doesn't start middle school to 7th grade. So if you, like where I live north of our church, they start middle school in 6th grade, so if I was pastoring there, it'd be 6th grade, so I'm down. And so they just call the junior high kids, it's just called JV, and the high school is called varsity. So, gathering environments, you can see for us, worship, and so everything that supports worship, media, audio, social media, web, publications, so the bullets and all that kind of stuff. And then our website is the kind of, it should go to publications, the web, that's a typo. Gathering environments is first impressions. So ushers, greeters, welcome desk, coffee team. We have a valet parking team. I remember when these guys came to me like, we're gonna do valet parking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a disaster. And the three of them, I'm like, and if I'm gonna pick anybody, you're the last three I'm gonna pick, you know. It's been incredible. Listen, we have a chunk of seniors who told multiple times, like in the winter, if you didn't have a valet team, I would have stayed home today. Because I don't want to navigate my car in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So anybody can take advantage, anybody, any guests, all our seniors do almost. We have special parking for guests, we have special parking for single moms, because they've got their hands full. So anyway, first impressions, that's all our first impression teams. And then anything on gathering, baptism, celebrate our gathering services. So team leader of that, like when there's baptism, okay, it's your job to get the video, it's your job to schedule the interview, it's your job to make sure the attendants know, make sure the water's filled, all that stuff. So gathering for us is worship. Okay. We've transitioned where we said prayer, just kind of how do we infuse prayer to every part of that. When that looks good, like that looks really spiritual, right, on an org chart. I'm just saying, practically speaking, we don't know what that looks like yet. We're trying to say how do we intentionally infuse prayer to every single environment we have. So I know that looks real spiritual, but we don't have it figured out yet.
Yeah. You figure that out later.
I'll let you know. But historically what this is, I can tell you the categories under gathering are worship, prayer, and fellowship. Now, let me just stop for a minute right here. Why don't we have fellowship in ours? Because the bigger a church gets, the less fellowship happens corporately. And it happens in small groups. One of the things I underestimated in my first church, which was about this size, was how important fellowship was to the church body. It wasn't important to me because I'm an introvert, but it was very important to most people in the church. And I neglected that it was poor leadership on my part. So if I said, hey, we're going to have a church-wide fellowship, I don't have a place where I can put 900 people. Okay? Like my church doesn't have a fellowship hall. Most large churches, they don't have fellowship halls. Unless they just have more money than they know what to do with, they build just buildings. Because a fellowship hall, oftentimes in some churches, it's just a room that sits empty unless there's a dinner. Now, a lot of churches multi-use it, we use it for this, use it for that stuff. So even though fellowship's not on mine, I think it should be on yours. Okay? Well, the last church I coached, they're about dead on your size, maybe just a shade smaller. We came up, they did 4 key fellowship events annually. Now, they were doing 9 when I got there. I'm like, good night. Like, how do you, the church calendar look like this, And so they said, we can do 1 a quarter, and let's do 1 a quarter and do it with excellence. And they did, and he's like, oh, it's been fantastic. I think fellowship's important in a church under 200. It's very important. Okay? Growing for us, life groups, that's small groups. What do you call it? Small groups, Sunday school, home groups, community groups, we call it life groups. Course seminars is this. Now again, this is something that is in the conceptual stage. If you look up the statistics on biblical illiteracy in North America, it's astounding. Okay? Now, here's what every pastor thinks. That's in some other church. Okay? That's in my church. So, What we're trying to do is offer a basic New Testament survey class, a basic Old Testament survey, and a basic theology class. Just, these are core seminars that everybody should go through. It's not a life group. Don't think, well, I'm gonna go to that semi group. It's just, these are just basic Bible kind of stuff, things like that, okay? It's in the conceptual stage for us. We've got 3 or 4 curriculum we're looking at to facilitate. We're not writing our own curriculum. We're trying to find out what's the best night of the week, or is it better on Sunday morning? So that's, we're committed to that, but it's conceptual at this point, so I can't tell you exactly what we're using, all that kind of stuff. One-on-one discipleship. What we have found is that for some people, to go from a room with hundreds of people into a room with 8 people is very intimidating. Because in a worship gathering, I don't know my way around the Bible. It's fine, nobody knows. I'm just sitting there listening. Verses on the screen, pretty safe. I go into a room where there's 8 people, and I'm 50 years old, and I can't find, the book of Matthew. That's humiliating. So what we have found is we just offer, say, hey, listen, if you'd like to get a basic, better knowledge of the Bible, we offer one-on-one discipleship, or sometimes it's one-on-two, and it just grows their comfort level with Scripture to where they don't feel so intimidated to get into a group.
Right.
So we see that as supporting groups, not competing with them.
That's good.
Okay? And we've used 3 different things so far for the curriculum, and I have a meeting coming up with a guy to try and find out what they're doing. So we've used some stuff. It's okay. Lifeway put out a thing. I used it with a group of 3 guys last year called Disciples Path. So it's like 5 or 6 sequential books you work through. It's 52 sessions. I'm just telling you, it's hard to get 52 sessions in a year, or it's 48. My guy's like, hey, I got to work tonight, or I can't,
Right.
So I said, that may be a little too much, or maybe stretch out to 2 years. But anyway, leadership development. That's how are we training up small group leaders. Like if groups are the way I disciple people, then I better be training leaders. So we do have stuff we use for that. Ministry placement. That is what we talked about last time, where we're trying to find a tool or resource where our small group leaders can find out the gifting of the people in their group and ask those people, would you be willing to serve in ministry? We put the burden of ministry involvement on our small group leaders to get their groups, people involved in ministry. I can't motivate 800 or 900 people involved in ministry. Okay, I can't, but if you've got 10 people in your group, you can find out, hey, 5 out of 10 of you aren't serving anywhere. Let me help you find a place. Now, here's my thing on gifts-based ministry. I think most of the time the church makes it really complicated. When you look at spiritual gifts categories, there are 4 spiritual gift categories in the New Testament. 1 Corinthians 12, Romans 12, Ephesians 4, 1 Peter chapter 4. Okay? Those are the 4 places spiritual gifts are listed in the New Testament. Depending on who you ask, there's this many gifts, there's this many gifts, there's this many gifts. Let me make it real simple for you. There's 3 categories of gifts in all 4 of those catalogs. Speaking gifts, serving gifts, and don't get nervous, sign gifts. Okay? That's how the gifts break down, that simple. There's a lot of debate on whether or not sign gifts are still in operation, so you have to decide what you think about that, whether you're a continuationist or a cessationist. But the other 2 are serving gifts and sign gifts. Okay? Can we all agree there have been people in churches who are fully convinced they have speaking gifts and they do not? Like you leave their Bible study, you know less about the Scripture. You're like, I don't know what that was, right? But the point is this, that needs to happen in our groups. And then care and counsel. So how do we do pastoral care in a larger church? Through our groups. And if they're not in a group, who does that? Our deacons. Okay? So care and counsel, the bigger the church is, the more important small groups become. Listen, one pastor can handle about 150 people, that's it. I think the hardest sized church to pastor, is running between 200 and 350. It's big enough to be busy, but not quite big enough to hire a full-time true associate.
Right.
And so the most churches, the first person they hire is a youth pastor, a lot of times. Let me show you a little diagram why that's a bad idea. Okay? So, if you have a successful youth ministry, what percentage of your total attendance? Can I erase some of the stuff, or is it going to freak out?
No, I think we're good.
You got it all, okay. So if you have maybe I can erase it. Is this like one of those trick things? It's like the candles you try and blow out. So if you have
Why don't you put your...
no, I can draw right here. I can draw here. So if you have a successful youth ministry, what percentage attendance should it run in proportion to the total church? So if the church is running 100, what's a good healthy youth ministry running percentage-wise?
Youth meaning from little kids to youth,
No.
or you talking about youth?
No youth.
7th grade to
I'm
12th
gonna
grade.
say 10, 15%.
Okay, anybody else?
25?
Okay, rule of thumb is between 10 and 20%. Okay, so rule of thumb is usually 10%, and a good youth group's running 20%. Let me show you a little diagram. So let's just say my church is running 200 people. So rule of thumb is for every 150 people you have in your average attendance, not just adults, total 150 people, you should have one full-time ministry staff person. All right? So my church gets to 150, and I'll be like, we need to hire another full-time staff person. What's usually the biggest push to hire as a first hire?
Youth.
It's a youth pastor. Okay? If it's not a youth pastor, it's a worship pastor. Now, here's the unicorn. We're looking for a guy that does youth and worship. Did you ever do youth and worship at all? At any point in your ministry?
Yeah, we had it a long time ago.
Did you ever do youth and worship together?
Not paid, but I did it.
Okay, that's the unicorn. Like, when people are like, hey, we want to hire some, we need to hire. Well, we need worship and we need youth. I look for a youth guy that I'm like, you look for a unicorn. You know what? So, but usually it's a youth pastor. Let me tell you why. Why do you think it's a youth pastor as the first hire? Okay? Want the
Because
youth
nobody
to grow?
wants to do it.
Okay?
Somebody take care of my kids, because I won't.
When they get to that age, parents like are freaked out. I need some help. And if you can keep them busy, they don't have time to be bad. Okay? Let me show you how that plays out in the life of the church. So let's say that my church is running 150 people, okay? So I want to draw 10 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Bless you.
Okay? Each of these circles represent 15 people in attendance, right? 150 people. So I hire a youth pastor, and let's say he's an incredible youth pastor, and he's running 20% of total church attendance.
30 people.
Yep. So we're both full-time, and the pastor says, okay, I hired this guy full-time, you should lighten my load. You're responsible for these people, and I'm still responsible for the other 80%.
Yeah, it's not fair, especially these up higher. You still got more pressure on you.
So,
Okay. That makes sense.
okay? I think most churches, their second hire should be a generalist. In what? A generalist, they cover a lot of areas, and specifically, they have gifts in the area the pastor doesn't.
Okay. So someone that can help balance.
That's it.
So you're saying like.
Hire
yeah.
to lead, your first hire should have gifts that are directly complementary to the lead pastor's gifts. So I'm a pretty good administrator. I'm not great at pastoral care, counseling, and stuff. So my first hire is a guy who can do some of that stuff.
Gotcha.
Most pastors are not good administrators. In church under 200,
So
hire someone who can do, who may oversee youth, like work with volunteers, not personally doing it. Somebody's helping structure, coach, but he also is good at counseling, pastoral care, all that kind of stuff.
And that should be something like the pastor picks because he has to work closer with them, so there's that chemistry.
That's what we do. Like I would never let someone work for me that someone else picked. That's just, that's, you know, what I mean, but that's how my church
That
do
makes
it.
sense.
It's just nuts.
Someone pick
Does this make sense? This like, we're gonna hire a full-time youth pastor. The pastor's like, I still feel overwhelmed. What do you mean? We just hired a full-time guy. Okay. I still got all this.
Right.
He took 3 of these bubbles. I still have the other 300. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I think in a church your size, it often is wise to hire multiple part-time people.
I love that. A team effort as opposed to a single.
Yep. Now, your lead pastor could be full-time, you have to someone, but I think you could hire a lot of people part-time. Okay? All right, other questions related to, we got down to growing. And then going ministries for us, 3 categories, this is how we organize it. So, partnerships, honestly, that's missions that we send checks to. So that's organizational missions like the Southern Baptist Convention, that kind of stuff, just, organizational missions. LHC member missionaries. So if someone in my church is a member, but they're also a missionary, like we have missionaries with Athletes in Action, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, all that kind of stuff, we support them directly I'll just tell you, that's $500 a month is what they get if you're a member missionary. Now there's requirements. You've got to be involved in the church. You've got to be giving. We have a sheet they have to sign off on. Okay? And then individual missionaries. Like, we just have some individual missionaries we support because we think they're doing good gospel work. Some are Southern Baptist, some are not. Now, they have to be conservative, evangelical, non-charismatic. Now, we don't have a lot of those, we just have a handful of those. Now again, some churches, the only thing they'll support is they'll go right check the Southern Baptist Convention cooperative program. That's it.
Right.
Yep, you can do that, that's your decision. That's not what we do. You can do that. Yes?
On those individuals, do you support them fully? Or
No.
you
No.
just share their
No.
support?
There's been a big movement where churches greatly downsize the amount of people they support, and they almost support people fully. Like, I'd rather support one guy full-time than give $50 a month to 500 people. Here's the problem with that. When you actually dig into how that's working, it's only very, very large churches who are doing it, and now smaller churches have tried to model it, and you got a bunch of people at mission field getting defunded.
That's right.
So it works like it's our administrative pastor. His dad retired as the missions pastor of a church in Michigan that runs about 5,000 or 6,000 people. So do you guys know who Arthur DeMoss is?
Nancy DeMoss?
No, not Nancy DeMoss. It's Arthur DeMoss. It's the DeMoss family. It's her family.
Okay.
Just one of the guys. No, it's not her family. It's DeMoss. She's DeMoss. This guy is the co-founder of Amway. Okay. He's writing missions checks to that church bigger than my church budget and yours combined. So yeah, they fully fund their missionaries by themselves. Well, that's unique. Not every church can do
Yeah,
that.
we can do that.
Yep. So we can't do it.
Giving.
So, all right. So
Minister for missions, you go on missions, you say 10% of your different countries, in South America?
I'll show you down here. Just a second. Yeah. So our goal. So let me tell you the measure. Now, once you get all this stuff out, you should have measurables for all this. Okay. So like our measurable for our gathering environment is we want it to grow 5 to 10% a year. Okay. Our goal for growing is that 75% of this attendance in groups is 75% of this total attendance. So you should have measurables, because here's the problem. Most churches have two measurables. What are they? No? Oh, these would be easy ones.
How much is given?
That's it. Nickels and noses. That's it. Sometimes it used to be Sunday school, used to be a bigger metric. It used to be membership. It was like, how many members do you have? Membership is pretty much an irrelevant statistic in most churches.
Preach it, brother.
Okay. Now we changed that. I think I talked about it last time. We don't. But anyway, so you have to. So for us, the measurable on partnerships is what percentage of our giving are we giving away. So our goal minimum is 10%. We want to give away 10%. Whatever comes in of our total receipts, 10% is going back out. Okay. We'd love to grow that to 25% over the next several years, but 10% is our starting point on that. Okay. For neighbors, it's broken down in 3 components. So we do faith at work. So we have a lot of people that work in management leadership environments, and so we've kind of tried to coach them. Here's how to view your workplace and people that work for you as mission fields, like intentionally. Work is worship kind of thing. So missional communities is something we're starting. Basically it's saying, hey, all of you folks live in XYZ community. You're not there by accident. We expect you to meet together once a month and say, how can we plant gospel seeds among our neighbors? It's not the pastor's job to be the chief soul winner. It's not the church's job to facilitate evangelism. It's your job as a member to own it. So we try to help organize that and resource and that kind of thing. And then biblical counseling. This starting in 2018, for the first year, we're going to open up biblical counseling to our community. We have a hard time keeping up with the needs in our church.
Right.
But we've got 3 or 4 more people getting certified in biblical counseling. So we're finally going to open it up. And let me tell you why. It's not because we enjoy it all the time. Counseling is hard work. I've had people I've sat across from 17, 18 sessions sit in my office and cuss at each other. I mean, listen, you want to get the hard work of ministry, get across from people who don't like each other for about 4 or 5 months in a row. A lot of fun, trust me. So, but here's what we also know. Hurting people are red apples evangelistically. They are open to help wherever it comes from. And when they find out that Jesus actually has answers for their life, they're open to the gospel. Okay, we're not doing it because we like it or because we don't have anything else to do. We're doing it because we think that what Christ and His Word offers people is life changing. And what we've found, our church is like it's everything you expect it to be when you drive by. It's wealthy and white collar and all that kind of stuff. Here's what we've learned about ministering to people in our community. They've achieved a lot of success, and what they found is in that success, that money and success doesn't produce joy or contentment.
Oh, it doesn't even.
And so now they're like, what do we do? Because we achieved everything we're supposed to, and we still feel rotten inside our marriages,
Right.
you know, whatever. And so we said, hey, we have an answer for that, and it's free. Our counseling's all free.
Ooh, I love it.
Now they have to come to
I love it
church.
too.
Ooh, I love it too.
Here's why. Because we say you will not grow spiritually apart from consistently sitting under the Word of
Right.
God and in fellowship with other
Yeah,
Christians.
you're serious about getting better?
That's it.
This
You're
is
gonna
part
show
of
up.
This is part of the video.
Yep, you're gonna show up.
Ooh, I
Okay.
like it.
So that's neighbors. Nations, again, there's no such thing as the nation of Detroit. That's what the guys like, what's the nation of Detroit? I was like,
That's what I was wondering. I thought maybe there's some nations in Detroit.
yeah, there might be, I don't know. So like literally this, tomorrow, we'll have 61 people from our church leave to go to Detroit tomorrow. Okay, so they'll be there all weekend, they'll worship with them on Sunday. It's an inner city church, it's just fantastic, we love the pastor. We go there every year. Okay,
What's the pastor's name?
Pastor in Detroit, Darryl Gaddy. Pastor Darryl Gaddy.
You just go for the weekend?
We take 2 trips a year, so sometimes we go for a weekend. We let them dictate how they want us, how long they want us to stay, and what they want us to do. My experience has been this: when you have a larger church with greater resources, they have a bad habit of telling the other church this is how we're going to come and help.
That's right.
I'm like, you're an idiot. You have no idea. Like sometimes you create a bigger burden. We're going to come and stay for a week. Oh, we can't house you for a week. You know, we can't supply you. We just say, hey, here's the weeks we'd like to come. When do you want us to come? What do you want us to do while we're there? Because we're not, you know, we're just coming alongside. We're not telling you what to do. You know, we're bigger, got more money. We're just, God's trusted you that mission field. We're helping resource in an under-resourced area. So we don't. So they said, hey, can you come this, and do this, and this? Yeah, that's fine. So we go to the same places every year. Just trust me on this. When you start becoming a church that sends people on mission trips, there will be some people, and you guys have done this, I know, that there will be some people who every year they want to go to a different place because like we're going to. I've never been there. I've never been to Colorado. You know, and they're deciding whether they go on a mission trip by how exciting the destination is. Okay, we're not doing drive-by missions. We're blowing for a weekend and feel better about ourselves. We're building long-term gospel relationships. When we come in, the people in the church trust us and the people in the community trust us as we come back year after year, sometimes twice a year to these places. I can't change the whole world, but I can help change the neighborhood around Pastor Gaddy's church. I can't change the whole world, but I can change the mountain villages of Atila in Guatemala. Okay? So, and then we do this every year as well. We have for 2 years, I should say, every year. We partner with a smaller church, under 200, and for a year, and we coach them through all the stuff that you're coaching through. And we do a capital campaign to help raise the money. And our church members adopt their pastor's family. One church member adopts them per month and sends them gifts and encouragement. And then our staff goes over and preaches for that pastor the entire month of July, and we give him a sabbatical. So it's my favorite thing we do.
That's awesome.
Favorite thing we do. So the reason it's my favorite thing to do is because I get to do it. I'm the one who came up with that. I'm like, hey, what about this? So it's a blast. It's a blast to do that. And then a part of that is our church will take a mission trip to their church and help with VBS or help with mall or whatever that kind of stuff. We don't, on the nation's part, we don't adopt a nation or a region unless we can go and take a trip too. Because we're not sending, this is not about sending checks to people we're never going to see and feeling good about ourselves. This is about life on life. So I read an article, so the church we partner with Detroit's inner city African American church, and one of our guys said, we're going to go and we're going to worship with them. And he said, I've never been to African American church, what's it like? And I said, listen, they're going to preach, they're going to sing, they're going to pray. The difference is they're going to do it twice as long as we do.
Yep.
And I said, it's going to be totally different. It's way more interactive. You're preaching them, they're shouting back at you, like it's a totally different environment. And I said, but here's the deal. You're not going to achieve reconciliation and unity by worshiping together, because when I go to Guatemala, I'm never going to understand how they worship. When I went and visited all these churches on my sabbatical, I don't understand why they did some of the things they do. Unity and reconciliation doesn't come from worshiping together, it comes from working together. So we don't adopt a place on our mission partnership unless we're committed to take a mission trip there every year. So that's how we pick those things. Now, we're almost out of time, so I'm gonna give you some homework. I know this school's not in session yet, but. Okay, your job between now and the next time I come, so a week from now, it's whoever can do this, or team, we do this, or whatever, okay, is to take all the circles behind me and put them under these headings. Don't eliminate them yet, unless you want to let someone shoot you or whatever. Just at the next step, when I come in next time, we need to see, okay, under these headings, let's at least take this chaos and organize it. Because then what we'll do is we'll start saying, hey, this is everything you're doing, this is where it fits, but we can't do all of this. So let's talk about what do we think we're best resourced to do, okay? And then what do we think the greatest needs of our community are that we should be addressing? So here's the thing, the mission of the church is generic. The mission of my church is the same as the mission of your church. It's to glorify God and make disciples. The vision is not generic, it's dynamic, based upon the mission field God has placed your church in. So let's say that I got a friend, he's in a community, it's heavily Hispanic speaking. And so one of the things on his, under neighbors, is on Sunday mornings, they offer English as a second language class on Sunday mornings. And that's those people's entry point to the church. It's been incredible.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay?
They really want to learn it.
That's it.
It's just an open door.
That's it.
Fantastic.
Yep. So I got one place, they had a lot of families that were single parent homes. And so they partnered with single parents, like it was a monthly date night. And they're like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Like, we bring our kids there for, why don't you pick them back up? Yes, you do. So you see what I'm getting at? You have to find out, listen, the things you put under your headings will be different than my church. Same categories, but vision specific to this mission field that God has called you to reach. Yes?
Normally, well, let me say this, is that something that you want the pastor to do, crafting the vision? Or, like, we're without a pastor?
Yep. So here's,
Play that out.
yeah, it's a great question.
I think this was a couple sessions back.
We talked about it a little
Kind
bit.
of a little bit.
So here's the thing. If you don't have a clue of what you think your strategy should be, how in the world do you know who to hire?
Okay, all right. You're right. Touche.
This helps narrow your field down quite a bit. Now, if you get someone here, and what's on your list, that pastor goes, oh, I'm against all that stuff. Okay, then God's not calling you here. Now, once you get here, as far as leading it, as far as fine tuning, as far as maybe adding a thing, or say, oh, look, great, we hired you because we want you to lead. But we feel like these are key things. Again, he may come and say, hey, as I've been here a year and I've gotten to know the community, there's something missing. Because I don't know what you're going here, because I don't live here and I'm going to church here. So he may come in after a year and go, hey, you know what, I think there's good things, but we've missed something that I've discovered after living here and being here that I think we really need to focus on. Great. But it's not random, it's intentional. You're just not slapping stuff up and going, hey, we're really busy. Okay? So, a couple minutes after, I've always stayed after a little bit and answered questions. And I'll do that now. All right? Is this helpful stuff?
Yes.
So you want us to help you, all those circles up there?
You can get one of these. You can just, like when I usually do this with the church, they just take this note paper here, they take a wall and they put 5 note papers up there, and they just say, okay, what yellow the stuff's on there, and they just write it under all there. Now at the end of it, I'll help you create one that looks just like this.
But we're taking that stuff.
Yes.
Are those the circles you're talking about?
Yes, you're getting these circles, and you're putting under these headings.
You know what, there's 2 more that wasn't up there that I forgot about. This one is that there's going to be a car show that our church is going to go to and hand out valuable materials to.
Okay.
And then another one, it's near Christmas and it's for Springfield Township, and there's going to be a parade where we come up in the parade and hand out Bibles.
Okay.
And then they have different stores set up, like a candy store, I don't know, but we're going to be the toy store. So we're going to start gathering up toys to give to the children that come.
Okay?
So those are two things that
Okay.
are on the
When you guys put
calendar.
your stuff up there, make sure you add those in as some things. Now, here's the thing. If you put too much up there on the cabinet, listen, the easy thing is organize and put stuff up there. The hard thing is narrowing down, because if you have, let's say those 2 events, let's say you have 15 events like that every year. None of them are going to be well organized and well resourced with volunteers, because I can't participate in 15 things. So I'm going to pick one, and then, so here's the hardest thing. Let me tell you what this does for you. This does 2 things. This helps you be intentional with your resources. Let me tell you the other thing that it does. Well, there's 2 other things. One, when you go to hire someone, part-time, full-time, whatever, there's no question, like, let me just be real honest, most church job descriptions are so incredibly helpful, it doesn't even matter. I'd rather say, show me my scope of responsibility. Okay? Let me tell you what else this does, and this is probably the most important. This tells you what to say no to. So, we had a lady in our church who's very involved in Bible study fellowship. You know what Bible study fellowship is? Like area-wide Bible studies. Listen, they're incredible. Great Bible teaching. She's in the leadership team of it. Like she said, hey, they're doing a Revelation study. And of course, you kind of talk about Revelation, you got a big crowd. So we can't fit all the people at Kenwood. So can we use your church as the second site? Sure. Short term? Yeah, absolutely. You won't even know we're there. Okay. Every week, hey, we can't turn the computer on. Hey, we can't get the screen to work. Hey, the room's too hot. Hey, like,
you're there.
yeah. So whenever people say like, we're gonna use the building and you wouldn't know we're there, and like they have no clue. Like we're just always like, oh, okay. So anyway, so at the end of it, she goes, oh my gosh, it went great. People loved our facility. A lot of them were closer to it. The room we're using here is way better technology-wise than the room over there. What about moving Bible study fellowship into our church? Our building's huge. We said we're not going to do it. She was none too happy. I'll just put it that way. So we're against Bible study. I'm passive aggressive. Like, yeah, of course, yeah, absolutely we are. We're totally against Bible study. We just said no. We think Bible study fellowship's great, but our job is to facilitate. We think that the primary responsibility of discipleship is the local church, not a parachurch organization. And this is how we think our local church should make disciples. And so we have to say no to good things like Bible study fellowship, even though we think it's great. And we do think it's great. We do. So it allows us to say no to good things. Let's say you've got 50 other events like that you want to plan if you want us to plan. You know what? These are 3 events we feel like we can pull off with excellence this year. And so I think it's a good, I made the joke last time. It's not like when it comes to missions, like, well, that's terrible. It's not like you're between the Ouija club and, the gospel tracks. It's like, it's like, oh, it's like a lot of great, like, is there any bad missions? No. But God's not called you to do everything. So you find what are the things, like I worked in the church one time, and they had an unusual amount of people that work in the medical field in church, like nurses and X-ray techs and a couple doctors. I mean, like just. And I said, gosh, when you schedule your mission trips, you should make sure it's a place that has capacity for medical mission teams. Why would we do that? Because God has resourced your church that way. So instead of picking a destination, going, hey, who wants to go here? You go and say, hey, I need everybody who's in the medical field to meet me after church, because God can use your vocation for His calling. Hey, you're an engineer? Great, then we're going to find a place that has a high engineering component, so we can go over there and, you see what I'm saying? Hey, you've got a huge contingent of, auto mechanics or handy people, crafts, whatever. We're going to go to a place that's under-resourced, and as part of our community outreach that weekend, we're going to have every single mom come, we're going to do all free car repairs. How did you pick that? Because that's how God has resourced our body. See the difference? So
You have someone that wants to go just because they have a love for the Lord and want to share the gospel, but
yeah.
they don't have like, a degree in engineering, or they're not a nurse, or not specific, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we never tell anybody no.
Yeah.
But we don't plan our whole trip around what people have a heart for. We plan our trip around how God has resourced our church. So we'd never turn anybody down ever mission trip, ever. Never. So, all right. So let me open up for questions here. I would say we're done at 8, but it's really 8:15 for us, right? So let me open up for any questions you have.
So when did you begin hating Bible study?
Apparently last year. According to this lady, it was last year, so.
So how do you break down, you didn't really get to talk about the children's stuff a lot.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
that we're, huge transition there right now.
Okay.
Obviously, we do not have that many kids, so we do not possibly, I mean, we have it broken down that way, but
Okay.
I think we're kind of thin in the volunteer taking care of one child in the room
Oh,
type
yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
We're having
Yep.
a stretch of
Good.
all there.
Yeah. So my experience has been a lot of times is that smaller churches do several things when it's to kids. Here's what I found out. I've got 4 kids, so I always sound like a pro kid. Listen, people will let you run as much children programming as you'll put on.
Well, we see that just by our Easter egg hunts and
Listen,
anything
you
that
got
walks.
something for my kids that's free, it keeps them out of my hair.
Yes.
Listen,
Like
Sunday morning,
sign
Sunday
me
night, Wednesday
up.
night, Easter egg hunt,
Yes.
fill the blank, great. So one, I think you should, when you're a church under 200, here's what I think. I think you should run 1 program a week really well.
What does that mean? Or
Okay.
what does that look like? What
Okay.
Just
So-
give me an idea.
Here's the other thing that I think churches do. They break their classrooms down way too small.
It's church very thin.
Like
right now.
I've had places before, they had 2 workers, and like, how many kids in that class? Just 1.
Uh-huh.
Do they show up every week? No, but
That's
when they do,
exactly
I'm
right.
like, that's crazy.
Yes.
So part of that is off to the side, if you can just say, hey, here's how it's organized now, part of what I've done, this doesn't benefit me at all, so don't think I'm trying to sell something. Part of what I've done is in church, like I go through coaching, when they say, hey, we want real specific about how do you do groups training, how do you do children's structure and stuff,
Yeah.
is I've let our staff come in and coach. And just say, hey, they want a whole day, and of just to coach them through, and, the church usually buys them a gift card, whatever, and stuff, gives them a small gift. And, because some of the stuff I
Coaching
can't
like
answer.
a volunteer, like if I were to volunteer for the kids stuff, is that what you mean?
Well, no, so like our children's director has gone to other churches and said, show me everything you're doing.
Okay.
And I'll show you, okay, this is how big this room should be, this is how this should be, this is what curriculum we're using, you can have our stuff, so they'll come in and coach specific. I can help with some of that.
Okay.
So some of that's driven by the room size, so let me throw out some stats real quick.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so,
That'd be great.
so rule of thumb is, for a preschooler, you need 35 square feet in a room per child. 35 square feet per child. Yep, so if I've got a room that's 350 square feet, I should have no more than 10 kids in there. Okay? For an elementary kid, it should be 25 square feet per child. For youth and adults, it's 10 to 12 square feet per person. You ever been in a Sunday school room that's like enormous and there's like 4 chairs in there?
It's not pretty.
It's just a bad environment. So, or you've got a room that's just growing and blowing and there's like, there's 30 chairs in a room built for 10 people. It's like, So when you think about offering 1 program a week, okay? When are most people going to be here?
Sundays.
AM or PM?
AM.
Okay, that's when your children's program should be.
Sounds so easy. Okay.
So, and I would run it, okay? I would run it. So right now, probably on Sunday morning, you're trying to staff 2 hours. Sunday school and children's church, worship, whatever that kind of thing. Is that correct? Okay. I would run children's program. Now, this is, some of you are going to like, that's a terrible idea, but
Just, yeah.
I would run.
He's so careful with his words. I appreciate that.
I think a church your size should cancel Sunday school for all age groups except senior adults.
Just because the amount of people
Can I at least
versus,
get a parachute
this is people,
before I
time, and
jump off
money.
that?
As a parent of small children, I agree with that completely because most of my school classmates get
She's
up
always
at-
gotta
I
leave.
am 30 minutes late every Sunday.
Okay, here's why.
But we start then, you're always on time.
Hold on, let him finish.
Here's why.
It's not just
Um,
you, girl.
Most of the time, you can't fill all the volunteer slots that are required to fill all the classes at 2 different hours. So here's the thing, when is a guest going to show up For Sunday school or for worship?
Worship.
Okay, then when should your best children's programming be?
Worship.
Worship.
Okay.
So you
I
have
see
the
that.
best
Mine-
worship hour ever with the kids, and you get the volunteers needed for that.
Now, here's what we do. How many of you ever taught children Sunday school with little kids, little bitty kids? How hard is it to teach a 4-year-old for an hour and 10 minutes?
That's why I agree with that.
Okay?
Purgatory.
Yeah, yeah. And then have them a second hour in children's church.
Right, so you gotta
Okay.
do it twice.
Yeah, so here's what we do. So we block, so our scheduling is an hour and 10 minutes on Sunday morning. Our worship service, our everything, children's program, everything's an hour and 10 minutes. We're planning for it. So we take, what's great about children's church? It's fun, it's large group, it's motions, it's dance, all this kind of stuff. Kids love it.
Yes.
What's hard about small group? Attention spans, what I do for an hour and 10 minutes, like, so we take the best of both. So in our hour and 10 minutes, there's 30 minutes of large group time.
Okay.
And
So
then at the end of that,
worshiping.
yeah, that big group, yep,
Yeah.
worship, fun, games, crap, whatever. And then after that, there's 40 minutes of small group time. They break up in small groups after that. So do we do small group like a Sunday school every week? Yes, we do. Do we do large group like children's every week? Yes, we do. Do we try and pull off an hour and 10 minutes of each? No, we don't.
That's crazy, and you're bigger, so you could possibly pull it off, but,
It's proportionate
What's the
though.
point?
We've also got more kids.
right,
So when I say, oh, your church has lots of resources, it's proportionate.
right.
You know, I've got more money, but I've also got a lot more people coming. I've got more volunteers, I've also got a lot more slots to fill. So every church has limited resources. The bigger you get, it's proportionate. So do I believe in small group Bible study for kids? Like, yes, I do. Do I think a kid can do an hour and 10 minutes in a Sunday school class and an hour and 10 minutes in children's church? Not very well. And you talk about hard recruiting volunteers. Hey, I need you for 2 hours and 20 minutes this week. You got time with a room of 4-year-olds? No. Our joke is, if the phone rings, like, just, hey, tell them I died. Tell them I died. So we do large group and small group in that 1 hour slot. So all the benefits of Sunday school, being in a small group, the crafts, the discussion, yes.
When you say small groups, so are you saying that the pre-K through college are together? Or are you saying junior high through college is together and?
No.
Okay.
So this does depend on some of your tenants, how you break it down. So we offer children's church.
Children's church, so is that your?
That's large group, small group.
Okay.
For kindergarten through
6th grade?
6th grade.
Okay.
Now, that's not totally true. We offer it for all of them, but kindergarten through 4th grade is the large group, small group experience.
Okay.
5th and 6th grade kind of does their own little, like it's a little different.
Okay.
By the time a kid gets to 6th grade, they're like, I want to hang out with kindergartners, but I'm not quite ready to be in youth group.
Yeah.
So
It is, it's an odd
it
time
is.
for
We
them.
just created a
It
whole
really
separate room for them, their own separate environment. You're probably not that size-wise to do something like that.
We have quite a few of those specifically.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Then I may just offer a special class for them called Bridge 56. We stole that from somebody else. So I would usually recommend children's church for kindergarten through 4th grade.
Which is what we do now,
Okay.
about for children.
4 years old.
Yeah, for,
They have a worship time / whatever, but then they get broken.
So,
I think you can do all that in an hour and 10 minutes. You don't need a Sunday school hour and worship hour.
And
If
our
you were
trees
to-
would be great if we had on children's
if
too.
you were to cancel the adult Bible studies that meet on Sunday morning, when would their small groups meet?
Whenever they agree to.
They've got 167 other hours a
I
week
knew
to
you
meet.
could say something like that. So they would meet at the church
They could.
facility.
Like a good chunk of our small groups meet on Sunday nights at the church.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yep. Here's why I think you should pull it off of Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Do you know where all the workers are you need for your children's and preschool ministry are every week?
Sunday school
Sunday
class.
In adult Sunday school classes.
Yes.
And they will not leave their class more than once a month to go help
Yep.
with programming that happens every week.
Yep.
Right.
You're competing against yourself.
I know, my wife does that and she's tired all the time.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Now, here's the thing. So why do we leave our senior adults? So for us, that's 60 and up. We left them in a Sunday school class. 2 reasons. One, they're not going to work in children's ministry anyway.
Very
Okay,
good.
for the most part.
Yeah.
I got a couple that will rock the babies and stuff, but like when you get like the worship, the big group, you're like, no way. Here's the other thing. Practically speaking, some of our seniors, they don't drive at night. So that's not fair to them. And some of their classes, literally some of them are meeting together for 30 years in that time slot.
yeah, they're not gonna be.
I'm not going to dishonor that.
Yeah.
So we left our senior adult classes in a Sunday school environment on Sunday morning. just as it was, just let them do what they're already doing,
Yeah.
so.
Technically, there are small groups so they can meet when they want, which happens to be
Sunday
Sunday
morning.
morning. Yay!
So they can meet any other time. I can only do children's ministry in that one time slot. I can't do children's ministry on Tuesday night, but a small group can meet on Tuesday night. What time's your worship service, 10:30? I got 10:30 for my children, my best children's slot.
I wish I could get here just at 10:30.
Well,
It'd be awesome.
so, yes,
I have a question.
Monday,
If you do
out of the
small
week,
groups at other times, what happens to the children?
yeah. So if your groups are off campus,
Yeah, we're doing that.
they're responsible for their own childcare. Now, what we do, you may or may not be able to do this, because we can barely do it. We reimburse their childcare, like we reimburse the cost of the babysitter, because we know that's such an obstacle. Now, do have some of our groups that meet on campus on Wednesday nights, and we have the Wednesday night children's program, which I think we shouldn't have, but we have one. And so that's built-in childcare for them, to do that stuff. So,
So I have a question about children's worship, because right now we run it with two people, Teresa and I, and then we have a rotating volunteer, and we have one, they do once a month. So what happens then if, because I'm going to Sunday school and that's where I'm being fed there and I'm in worship once a month, but how do we get the volunteers in worship as well? How do you
Yeah.
do that?
So the advantage of, like, we have two services, September through May, we only do one service in the summer. The advantage is in the two-service format is, hey, serve 1 hour in worship when you don't miss church. So in a single worship church, I always say you should recruit 4 teams. They each serve once a month. That's it. So you would need 12 people to work in children's church. It's you two, and a helper or something like that.
It's
Now,
not very Teresa, yeah, because her and Teresa do it all the time.
yeah, that's,
every year,
well, let me
every year.
just say that, that's not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair.
So once a month is what they do, okay? And then here's what we ask. So we did once a month, September through May. Then they got the summer off, and we recruited a team that all they did was June every year. They did those 4 weeks, and that's it. That's all they had to work the whole year. They had a July team and an August team. So we said, hey, can you give us 1 month out of the year? You give us 4 Sundays out of 52. I just need you for July. But the other team worked once a month, so I had to miss church one time a month. Do that. Yes.
You're always gonna have those folks that wanna work with the children though, because they don't wanna be in a Sunday school class. It's their diversion.
Yeah, that's not a scheduling issue, that's a totally separate issue.
Right.
Now, if you don't have Sunday school that's offered, do they want to miss church, like the main worship service? That's another issue.
Yeah.
So, but if you're...
It's really not a scheduling issue though.
Yeah, if your church service is good, most people aren't going to miss more than once a month.
Mhm.
So we did 4 teams is what we did. My first church was this size, we did 4 teams. So you work week 1, every month you work week 1. You're the week 2 team, you're the week 3 team, you're the week 4 team, every time. So, like on a 5th Sunday, 4 times a year, I think they would all work like have a party, like show a movie, or, you know, just something different to break it up. And then again, they got the summer off, and we had one team all did the whole year's work. June, this team worked July, this team worked August. That's all they did the whole year. Other questions?
You didn't break down the second one, the junior high. So what do they
So-
do? So they don't have like a little worship thing, do that?
No.
What
So,
do they do?
well, that's not true, this year's different. So for us, this is new this year. I'm not a huge, I used to not be this way, this has been a shift for me this year. I'm not a huge fan of children's or youth or student ministry, we call student ministry, youth ministry, that segregates them from the life of the church as a whole.
It makes it hard for them to transition, so they end up feeling like they can't.
Yep.
Which is what's.
So
kinda
on
hard.
Sunday morning, we offer no program for high school kids.
Yeah.
Junior high still have a worship service. So what do your kids do in high school ministry on Sunday mornings? They serve.
So they're volunteering, they're helping where they can.
Listen, when a kid leaves student ministry and they go away to college, most kids drop out and we blame them, like, oh, they didn't get connected to a church and all that. Listen, we disconnected them from the life of the church when they hit 9th grade.
Right.
Amen.
And so we want our kids when they leave, like, they've been so involved in the life of the church. I worship with the church as a whole. I serve with
serve,
adults.
I know what I'm
Like to go
doing,
into
right.
college and not be involved in a church is like, this is weird. All I've ever known is being involved. So that's new for us. Like, you know, here's the other thing. I'm not a huge fan of separate youth worship services. Because what it says is the church worship service that we all experience together is not good enough unless the church caters it to you and your preferences. Then it's not good. You're creating a consumer Christian mentality.
Right.
Or if this isn't geared towards me, what do you have for me?
Right.
We got Jesus, we got worship, we got community. You know? So,
Your 9th through college, young adults or whatever, they are automatically, they're doing worship service and they're serving, and then
Yep, on Sunday
they're
morning.
involved in small groups.
and they have their own teaching small group time on Sunday nights. But
Okay,
it's the same thing, it's 30 minutes of large group and 40 minutes of small group.
okay. So they do something separate and, okay,
So Sunday, because there doesn't need to be age-specific teaching to them.
right,
Like they're struggling with things that I'm not, you know, and vice versa.
okay,
So I'm not super interested, 20 years of my marriage, I'm not super interested in a dating series,
right.
but I needed one when I was 15, right?
Right, okay.
So we do a specific time for them, but they don't do worship a whole lot in there, and I don't want them to.
You try to get them as involved in the normal stuff as possible.
Yep. So. Other questions?
Brett,
Yes.
Is there a way that we can get those, unless we take them with our phones or take a picture or whatever, is there a way we could get list of those, or Harry, can you
These,
help us with that?
I think the
Yeah.
best thing is going to be take a picture of your phone.
All right,
Like that's what most churches I work with have done, like snap a picture.
okay.
You know, or one person snaps a picture, they print it off. It's not everybody's phone. Like my mom, I told my mom to snap a picture, like, with what? I love what my mom calls, my mom's.
Heather's got
70.
like them all down, you guys, so we can make a copy of her. She got every single one of them down.
Good.
I'm pretty
You
sure.
get extra points.
Impressive. So we could always copy.
Other questions? I have to leave at 8:30. So, any other questions? Is this helpful? Is this?
Very helpful.
Okay. I just, like I said, sometimes we only know what we know, like what we personally experience. It's not bad. But sometimes we need to think critically, like, hey, what if we did something different? And what if, so let me give you a little leadership adage that I learned a long time ago that's been really helpful with all this stuff. So you all know that, not that, when I say there's something wrong with your church, I don't mean that in a grand, but like, man, there's just like, we're volunteers, we're like running things, we're like, so everybody knows like, something's not working, right? Here's what we don't understand. Whatever product you're getting, the machine that's producing it is perfectly designed to produce that product. What happens is you need to go back and rebuild the machine.
Yeah.
The problem's not the product. We need more committed people. We need more generous people. We need more gifted people. We need more, no. Whatever you've designed is perfectly designed to produce the product. And nobody ever looks at the machine, because the machine got built 40, 50 years ago, a lot of times in churches when they were incorporated, or parts have been added to it by anybody, that didn't know how to work with the machine. They're just like, hey, let's do this. You need to go back and build a more efficient machine. Don't criticize the product. Build a better machine. And your machine is a disciple-making machine called the church. Okay? There's nothing spiritual about your structure other than deacons, elders, like some of the stuff in the New Testament. But the New Testament gives a lot of flexibility on how you flesh that out. There's not a single Sunday school program in the entire New Testament. Did you know that? There's not a single Wednesday night Bible study. There's not a single, but the New Testament doesn't forbid any of that either. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing right about it. We can't change that.
Would that say somewhere like meet daily?
So for them, Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25 talks about not forsaking the assembling yourselves together as a manner of summons. If you read the context of what that passage is, it's not talking about a daily worship gathering. It's talking about mutual ministry, believers living with each other. They met in the temple courts and in the houses there. So when someone says, well, we want to be a New Testament church, we're going to do Sunday school, I say, listen, if you're going to be a New Testament church, meet in someone's house every single day. I'm not doing that. Well, then, Now here's the thing, that's all in the book of Acts, like the pattern of the early church. Acts is a historical book in the New Testament. So a lot of what's in the book of Acts is descriptive of what the early church did, not necessarily prescriptive of what the church should do. Especially, and I know this is all theology stuff, especially early in the book of Acts. So for example, in Acts chapter 6, when they picked the find 7 men full of the Holy Ghost to oversee this widow's problem we're having, so that they can get back to ministry of the word and prayer. And so they collect this offering. That doesn't mean that from every point forward, those are deacons, they should handle the church finances. That was a specific thing they called that specific church to do that was descriptive of a particular need that arose at that time. Not prescriptive, that's how the church should be structured from that point forward. So I know that's a lot.
Clarification on the homework. You want us to
Yes.
take these circles and put them on, under all your headings?
Yes.
You want everybody to do that individually, or are we
No,
to
I
do
would-
that as a group?
I think you should do as a group.
We need to have somebody tell us when and where and how.
Or just designate some people, hey, would you come and do that? So I'll let you guys decide that.
We need to nominate a team.
Each Sunday,
Can we vote on that?
Special business meeting.
call nominating committee, get the church clerk to record it. See if we have a quorum. Listen, I've been in ministry 15 years, I don't know how many business meetings, I still don't know what a quorum is, like, I don't know, what's a quorum now? So,
Depends on what
I would just say, hey, why don't you folks over here, I think it needs to be a small team that does it, because here's why. Someone's gonna say, hey, we'll do all the gathering stuff. Well, you may think something's gathering, so no, it's growing, and, you know. And listen, if something gets out of category, it doesn't matter, we'll fix all that. But when I come here next Wednesday, you know, take this stuff, and I would do it, I'd put up one post-it heading, I'm gonna leave these here, on that back wall, one post-it heading for administration, family ministry, gathering, growing, and going. And then just put everything on there, and then we'll say, okay, this can't all stay. So let's build your strategy based on all that. That's when things get really interesting.
But does it leave room then for the things that, for example, we have a huge Nepalese contingent up here, just west of us. And ESL would be remarkable, that kind of thing. Do we think outside the box at this point, or will you help us go there?
Well, so here we'll do two things. When you get to your final flow chart, it'll be both the things you've chosen to keep doing. So you got 3 options with all these things on here. You can trash it, you can adjust it, or you can keep it exactly as it is. It's working great. So we'll go through all that, but then the last part of that, what gets on your chart, is unrealized opportunities missionally. So like, for example, they did a college survey team came in and surveyed kind of our area. They identified 5,000 people from Taiwan that have no church. I had no idea. So some church around us should find a Taiwanese, is that right? Taiwanese? Yeah. Church planter and start a church.
Wow.
So that's an unrealized missional opportunity for us or a church around us, kind of thing and stuff. So yeah, on your thing, you can say, here are things we're considering.
We could, is anybody available Sunday evening that we could do this? This Sunday?
I am.
What do you think, like after church, are you thinking?
No, that's lunchtime.
Now, I will tell you this, what we've done, when we first did this at our church, it was hard to get people to come back that wants to give them a stay. And so we said, whoever wants to stay, we'll buy you lunch.
Oh, I like
And it's a
that.
working lunch.
Good, how are you gonna take that out of your budget?
I said, it's just hard to get people to come back sometimes. Now, the challenge is if people got little kids, they've been at church all morning, that can be a little challenging. So
Yeah.
you just have to decide on your group who wants to participate, what's the best and stuff.
Or we could show up early on Wednesday. Whoever can show up
Right
early.
after church, or 6 o'clock, or what?
You mean early, like just before this?
Hey, I've got to run, and so
Okay,
I know you guys got
go
stuff
ahead.
to discuss, so I'll see you next Wednesday. Good work tonight.
Thank you.
So what are we
Sunday
thinking?
evening? Sunday, that we have time to work through it, I think.
What time?
Yeah, Sunday.
6?
Thank you.
Kathy? Claudia? Okay, 6 o'clock here, and we'll
6
sit
o'clock
at the table.
Sunday evening.
We don't have
On
to
Sunday
do it on
evening.
calendar.
Can we do that?
Nothing else is happening on Sunday evening.
I don't have anything.
I can't think of
Right?
anything.
Okay, wonderful.
6 o'clock Sunday, fellowship hall, and we'll sit around the table.
Who's got the list of this?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have it?
Eric,
Oh, I took a picture. Oh, did you? Would you send it to me? I don't think I.